Good evening. I will be giving a presentation on memory, and I will be discussing aspects such as what it is, how it works, and some of the different forms of it. So, what is memory? Memory is a part of the brain that is responsible for encoding, storing, and retrieving data and information when needed. Memory is vital to our experiences and is the storage and processing of information over time for the purpose of influencing future actions. Your brain cannot store all that information, so it chooses what information is relevant for that specific moment in time. So, how does memory work, you may ask? In order to form new memories, information must be changed into a usable form, which occurs through the process known as encoding. Encoding is a crucial first step to creating a new memory. It allows the perceived item of interest to be converted into a construct that then can be stored within the brain. Once this information has been successfully encoded, it is then stored in the memory for later use, such as when we have to recall information for a test from either a short-term memory or a long-term memory. The second stage is known as storage. So much of the stored memory lies outside of conscious awareness. So we won't actually see this information until we actually have to use it. Storage is defined as the process of placing newly acquired information into memory, which is then modified in the brain for easier storage. Each of these different stages of human memory function kind of serves as a filter that helps protect us from the flood of information that confronts us on a daily basis. It helps to avoid the overload of information and helps us to keep us sane. The more information that is repeated or used, the more likely it is that this information is being retained and stored in the long-term memory. This is why you often hear if you study more, you will perform better on a test or a task. The final stage is known as the retrieval process. And this retrieval process allows us to bring stored memories into conscious awareness. Recall and retrieval of the memory refers to the subsequent reaccessing of events or information from the past. This information has been previously encoded and stored in the memory. This is also sometimes referred to as remembering. During recall, the brain replays a pattern of neural activity that was originally generated in response to a particular event, echoing the brain's perception of the real event. So now we'll be discussing some of the different forms of memory. So the different forms of memory is sensory, working, short-term, and long-term. Sensory memory refers to the brief storage of sensory information. It is kind of seen as a memory buffer that lasts only briefly unless it is attended to or passed on for further processing. If this is not the case, more than likely this information will be forgotten. The purpose of this sensory memory is to give the brain some time to process the new incoming sensations and allow us to see the world as an unbroken and continuous stream of events rather than individual bits and pieces. One of the most common forms of the visual sensory memory is known as iconic memory, and this has the average length of time that the information stays in this form of memory is about 250 milliseconds, which is about a fourth of a second. So this declines very rapidly. Another form of sensory memory is the auditory sensory memory. This auditory sensory memory is known as echoey memory, and this lasts about 4 seconds. This is convenient as it allows you, among other things, to remember the words that are said at the beginning of a very long sentence when you are getting just to the end of it. So this can be seen as taking notes on your psychology teachers what they're saying right when they're finishing a sentence. So you're able to get the information that they just said even when they're moving to a new piece. Another form of memory is known as the short-term memory. This is the information that a person is currently thinking about or is aware of. It is also called the primary or active memory. This is recent events or sensory data such as sounds are often stored in this type of memory. Short-term memory often encompasses events over a period anywhere from 30 seconds to several days. The duration of the short-term memory seems to be about between 15 seconds and 30 seconds, and it has only a capacity of about 7 items. Short-term memory is known for having these three key aspects. The first one is the limited capacity, due to it only being able to hold 7 items at one time. The second one is the limited duration, due to this storage being fragile, very fragile, and the information getting lost due to either distractions or passage of times. And the third one is the encoding, due to it being primarily acoustic and even translating visual information into sounds. Next, I will be going into long-term memory. And long-term memory refers to the unlimited capacity memory storage that can hold information for a lengthy period of time. So this can include anywhere from lasting days, weeks, months, even decades. So most of these long-term memories lie outside of our immediate awareness, but we can draw them into our consciousness when we need them. So I will be going over 3 specific types of long-term memory. The first one is the procedural memory, and this is a part of the long-term memory that is responsible for knowing how to do things, such as memory for motor skills. So it doesn't involve conscious thought, so it's really automatic thinking and it's not declarative. So for example, procedural memory will include knowledge such as knowing how to ride a bike or tie your shoes. So it's really automatic. You know how to do these things. You don't really have to think about it. Systematic memory is a part of the long-term memory that is responsible for storing information about the world. This includes knowledge about the meaning of words as well as general knowledge. And then the third one is episodic memory. And this is a part of the long-term memory that is responsible for storing information about events or episodes that you have experienced within your life. So this does involve conscious thought and it is declarative. So an example of this type of memory would be maybe remembering your first day of high school, middle school, college, or preschool. And lastly, I will be going into working memory. So working memory is a form of short-term memory. However, instead of all the information going into a single store, there are different systems that have different types of information. So it consists of 3 different parts: central executive, visual spatial sketchpad, and the phonological loop. So the central executive is the driving force behind this whole system. So this is kind of known as the boss of the working memory, and allocates data to the subsystems, the phonological and the visual spatial sketchpad, and it also deals with cognitive tasks such as the mental arithmetics and problem solving. So anywhere from just a simple daily life task that you are doing. The next one is the visual spatial sketchpad. So this is kind of known as your inner eye, and it's also referred to the VSS. And this is used for navigation. So this is storage and processing of information into visual or spatial format. And lastly, the phonological loop. This is a part of the working memory that deals with the spoken and written material. So this is everything that is written down or you are saying. It can be used when you are trying to remember an address or a phone number. And it usually consists of 2 parts. So it consists of the phonological store, which is also known as the inner ear, and it's linked to the speech and perception. So it holds information in speech-based form, which is the spoken word, for about 1 to 2 seconds. The second part of it is the control processing, which is the inner voice. And this is linked to the speech production. So this is used to rehearse and store verbal information from the phonological store. So I went over 3 different aspects of memory: what it is, how it works, and some different forms. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.